Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to start off with these plastic ornaments. They came in a bag I picked up at the thrift store. I'm just going to create some Christmas shabby chic inspired tassels. So I am going to start off by giving them 2 coats of chalk paint in the color Truffle from Waverly Chalk Paint. I am going to add in some salt wash only because they are plastic and they're very slick surface. Salt wash is basically an additive for paint if you are trying to create a textured look. I also find it very useful when painting, for example, a surface like this. It helps the paint bond to this surface that is very slick, which in this case it is plastic. So for my first coat, I am going to stipple on the paint just to create a little bit of texture. Once I give these plenty of time to dry, I am going to go over them with this folk art paint, doing like a dry brush effect. I still want to see some of that brown peeking through. So for the birds, I decide I want to keep them gold, so I'm just going to freshen them up with some rub and buff. They did have a couple of scratches, so this took care of that. So as you can see here, it ain't a big difference, but once you put them side to side, you can see they are much brighter and it took care of all the little scratches they had. So I had already painted one of the birds brown, so using the leftover rub and buff, I'm just going over that brown just to bring out some of the details. So to create my tassels here, I'm going to start cutting up my lace. I have a ton of lace, some vintage, some isn't. I pick it up at the bins when I find it. So I start out by cutting several laces and ribbons. I believe I also add pearls to this one. This is also a perfect way to get rid of any scraps that you may have laying around. So here I'm going to cut up this, it's a roll of fabric, like canvas type fabric. I picked it up also at the bins. I'm not sure what it's originally used for, but I go ahead and rip it up here into little strips just to add into my tassel. So here I'm just arranging my ribbon and my lace. Then I will find my center and I'm going to go ahead and start tying off my tassel. So for my hanger, I wanted it to be some pearls, so I'm adding some hot glue to the center here, and I'm going to glue the ends of my pearls just so it is secured in the center so it can create a little hanger. So just to add some interest to my tassel here, I'm using the ornaments I painted, and I'm going to go ahead and hang them from the middle of my tassel. So I string some gold ribbon through my ornament here. I tie off a knot and I'm going to place it in the center here, and I'm going to add some glue. So I'm going to tie this off with some jute, wrapping it around a couple times just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. These are going to be for my craft show coming up at the end of the month. So for this one, I didn't really want the jute to show, so to give it a more finished look, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it with some ribbon. So to disguise the stopping point of my ribbon, I go ahead and add this pretty little button. I'm just going to take off the back of it just so it can sit a little more flat. I go ahead and dovetail my ends here and we'll be all done. So I did make several of these. I am going to leave in these next clips just to show you an example of a different one I made. So this next one is also a tassel. I just created the tassel a little bit different than the first one. I'm still going to start off by cutting off all my strips of lace and ribbon. But instead of folding it in half, I'm just gonna fold the very top ends of my ribbons here, and I'm just gonna tie it off right there to create my tassel. So here, same thing as the previous tassel, I added some jute so I can have something to hang it off of the top of my tassel. Then I pulled out some more lace. I'm going to create just a very simple bow here, and I'm going to hot glue it to the very top of where my bird is hanging from, and that'll get it secured to the top. So here at this point, I realized that I forgot to string my hanger through, so I just string it through this crease cut tool and I push it through the top of the tassel to bring the jute out through the other way. Then just to add a little sparkle and shine, I'm just going to glue on this little jewel to the top of my bow. So I just wanted to share this. This was my original idea. I made a hole with my drill bit through the top of my bird and I ran the jute through there, and that's how I attached it to my tassel. So I basically wrap it around with some more jute to secure it, and then I will wrap that with some bow just to cover up the jute. So I attached my lace bow to the top of the ribbon. I dovetailed the bottom of my lace and I'm all done. Next up, I picked up some galvanized tags from Dollar Tree. I'm going to give them all a coat of white paint. I plan on decoupaging some napkins on here, so a white base is always a good start for decoupage. So I'm going to use these napkins. I picked up a couple months ago from an estate sale. I don't know where they are originally from, so I wouldn't be able to link them, but they are so beautiful. So these are 3-ply napkins, so I'm going to go ahead and take off the extra layers. I'm just going to work with the very top of the napkin. I am going to add a thin layer of Mod Podge to my tags here. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down my napkin, give it a couple taps to try and get out some of the bubbles and wrinkles. Then I will grab a piece of saran wrap. The saran wrap is basically going to create a barrier between your fingers and the napkin. That way the napkin doesn't stick to your fingers and you're able to flatten out some of the wrinkles and bubbles. And once they are dry, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my edges here with a sanding block, taking off all the excess napkin. So I am going to create some frames for my tags here. This is the frames mold from IOD. So I am going to use this clay, air dry clay I picked up from Hobby Lobby. This one was a bit more moist and sticky compared to the one that I use usually. So it was a bit more difficult to release it from the mold. So I'm not sure if I would use it again for this purpose. So I already added some baking powder to my mold here. I'm going to start pressing the clay into my mold. I pressed down enough. I want to make sure I pick up on all the details that this little frame has. And then I will rub off all the excess clay that's on top. Then I will turn my mold here upside down to release the frame. Surprisingly, this one did come out pretty easy. I struggled a bit with the other ones. They would just tear, they wouldn't stay together. So I was able to create 4 for this project here. And then I just got too frustrated and switched over to my other clay. So being that the clay would fall apart very easy, I did let these dry overnight. Then I go ahead and give them a coat of white paint with Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White. I picked up these napkins at Ross last year. I'm going to go ahead and trace out the center of my frame so I can cut out my picture that I'm trying to use. Then I'm going to decoupage them to my frame here using Mod Podge. And here's where I began to struggle. I place my image down here and I place it off center. And then when I try to pick it up, I start picking up some of the paint as well. You will see how I end up fixing it. And here you will see me using some saran wrap again just to push down some of the bubbles and wrinkles. And as always, I'm going to go ahead and use the texture stamp from IOD just to add some crackle here to my images. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a clear coat over my image here just to seal and protect. So I do try and cover up the white edges where I didn't center my image with some antique wax, but I end up not liking that either. So using this E6000, this is the one that you find near the jewelry. I find that it dries a lot quicker than the regular E6000. So I'm going to begin to add it to my edges here, and then I'm going to add some but pearl trimming to the edges here. So to attach these to my tags here, I'm going to add some Titebond to them and glue them down to my tags. So to avoid the gap that you get with hot glue, I decided to use Titebond to adhere these to my tags. So next up, I'm creating this bow that I actually learned how to do last year. So I didn't speed this part up in case you want to learn. I know that I learned by watching a video over and over and over again. You're basically looping it between your two fingers up and over. Then you're going to get the end of the ribbon here and you're going to bring it around your loops and you are going to loop it through that back part of the bow, and that is going to create your knot. And that probably made zero sense, but that's the best way that I can explain it. I feel that this bow is so perfect for ornaments or for little tags like this. It's just a perfect little bow. I never knew how to do this until last year. If I could find the video that I learned from, I would post it or give credit to, but I have no idea. It was somewhere on Instagram. But anyways, enough with this bow. I do add another clip. I slowed it down just in case there is someone out there who wants to learn because I needed a slow motion of it, but I didn't have it at the time. So there it is in the next clip. So thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you all liked what I created today. Very shabby chic, inspired. If you like what you see, please subscribe and follow for more. And follow me on all my other socials, which is Instagram and TikTok. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.